Growing up, I had a lot of aunts and uncles. This particular aunt and uncle were always a bit strange to me. They didn't seem to like each other very much, and every time I did see them, which wasn't very often, they were always fighting. Apart from that, their kids were kind of weird too. These were the only cousins I didn't have a good relationship with. I never really saw them very often because it seemed every few months they were moving. If I had to guess, I'd say from the time I was age 6 to age 12, they had moved more than 10 times. Even though I really didn't get along very well with them, this didn't stop me from trying. In fact, on a few occasions, I would ask to spend the night at their house, which, as I mentioned before, could be any number of places since they moved around a lot. At one point, they actually moved into a farmhouse. There was a lot of acreage and a forest that was adjacent to it. The first time I visited the house, one of my cousins showed me around the forest and pointed out the deer stand that him and his father had built. The first day out there actually went pretty well. I didn't see my aunt and uncle much that day, but I did spend a lot of time with my cousins, and we were actually getting along. We played video games, watched MTV, listened to music, and they showed me around the house. It was actually kind of fun, and I have to admit I was enjoying myself. The first night there, sometime after dinner, one of my cousins and I snuck into my aunt and uncle's room. She told me that she wanted to show me a secret room that was in there. This sounded really cool, so I went with her. I immediately felt disappointed when she opened the closet door. She was a little bit younger than me, and I tried to reiterate to her that this was simply a closet where people would store their clothing. She started to giggle and just kind of shook her head at me and said, "No, not the closet. It's inside the closet. I'll show you." Inside the closet and a bit to the back, there was a small crawl space on the right. I watched as she climbed inside the small crawl space and then stretched out her hand as if indicating she wanted me to go with her. I've always been a bit claustrophobic, so naturally I hesitated. I think that she could sense this, because she came back out. I told her I didn't want to go in there if there was no light, and she assured me that it was fine. All you had to do was feel your way around. At this point, I started asking questions, mostly because I was a bit nervous. Stuff like, how far back does it go and what's inside there? She told me that it went back quite a ways, and that she wasn't sure what was inside of it because she never took a light with her. She just kind of felt her way around. The one thing that she did mention that struck me as kind of creepy was that as you went back, it would start to feel like you were going down a hole. I guess architecturally, this really didn't make any sense. I mean, why would there be a hole inside a crawl space in a closet? What could that possibly be used for? After a few moments of this conversation, she went back inside the crawl space and said, "There's nothing to be afraid of. I'll go inside first and show you, and then I'll come back out. Then you and I can go in together. Okay?" For some stupid reason, I actually agreed to this, and I watched and listened as she went inside the crawl space and seemed to vanish into the darkness. It seemed like she was in there for a long time, but in reality it was probably only a few minutes. She peeked her head out the crawl space entrance and said, "Come on," and reluctantly, I went inside with her. The crawl space was extremely small, quite narrow. In fact, we had to be on our hands and knees to get through it, literally crawling as we went. I had only gone a few feet before we were crawling in complete blackness. As I mentioned, I'm highly claustrophobic, and I was beginning to have a bit of a panic attack. I couldn't see anything, and the only way I knew my cousin was still in front of me is every couple of seconds, I would reach out and tap the bottom of her foot just to make sure she was still there. The air inside was extremely dusty and I started to cough. I had only been inside a few moments and I decided I had had enough. I had made up my mind and I backed out of the crawl space The rest of the night she didn't talk to me. I think in a way I'd kind of let her down. She probably expected me to be super brave or something like that. But to be perfectly honest with you, I was terrified. Not just because it was claustrophobic, but there was something about the darkness there that just didn't sit well with me. Something inside that crawl space didn't feel right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I didn't want to spend another moment in there. I just felt like I had to leave. Something inside my head was telling me to get out, and I wasn't about to ignore it. The next morning, my cousin was kind of teasing me about the whole thing, calling me a fraidy cat and saying that she didn't know boys were afraid of the dark. Yeah, this made me mad. Of course it did. I mean, she was 7 years old and calling me a coward. How could I not be upset by this? It's gonna sound really immature, but I got sick of being teased. I got mad at her. I just wanted her to stop calling me a coward, and I told her I was gonna prove to her that I wasn't afraid. I decided to go back up to the closet and go back into the crawl space by myself. I told myself that if she could go in there alone, then so could I. And that's exactly what I did. We went back up to the closet and she stood outside as I made my way slowly into the crawl space and started to crawl on my hands and knees to the right. I had only been in there for a few seconds and my heart was already in my throat. Nothing seemed to be calming my nerves. My fingernails were practically digging into the wooden planks beneath my hands. I was starting to sweat, and not because it was hot in there, but because I was terrified. Despite this, I kept moving. After about a minute or two of crawling, it dawned on me just how far back this crawl space actually went. I didn't have a light with me or anything like that, so I couldn't see which direction I was going or what exactly I was touching. I just kept feeling in front of me, hoping that I didn't fall down any holes or shafts. After a few more tense moments, I could feel what she was talking about when she described this hole, an incline in the floor that didn't seem to make sense. I made my way slowly down the incline, which only seemed to grow steeper the further in I went. The incline started to become so steep that I had to push my hands backwards to stop myself from sliding on the dusty planks. I remember calling out over my shoulder to my cousin, asking her how much further I had to go. But she didn't reply. I couldn't even hear her now. I'm not sure if it's because the sound was dampened that heavily, or if she wasn't outside the closet anymore. The only sounds that became obvious at this point was my breathing and my still accelerated heartbeat. It was at this moment that something made me come to a dead stop. I could feel a rush of cold air near my hand. It just felt like icy air going across my fingertips and nowhere else. I was thinking that perhaps this was a draft, or that maybe I was getting close to a ventilation shaft that wasn't sealed properly. And that was when I felt it. Something cold splashing on my fingers. The first thought I had was that there was a leak in the roof, and that this was just water. But the thing is, it hadn't rained for several days. When I touched the liquid with my other hand, it didn't feel like water. It felt almost slimy, and it was also a bit sticky. And as I raised my hand up to my face, whatever this stuff was, it smelled rotten, spoiled, maybe even a bit moldy. I was just about to put my hand back down and continue crawling when I felt something touch my other hand. There was no mistaking what it was. I was feeling fingers, cold and clammy fingers digging into my skin. As quickly as I could, I backed my way out, doing my best not to scream. When I got out of the crawl space and looked around, I couldn't see my cousin. I ran back down the stairs and found her in the living room watching TV. I must have looked awful because when she saw me, she asked me if I was sick. I asked her to tell me what was inside that crawl space, and she got a very puzzled look on her face. She said, "Why? Did something happen?" About an hour later, my aunt and uncle came home, and I asked them if they could take me back to my parents' house, which they did. I never spoke to my parents about this event, or my aunt and uncle, and I never discussed it with my cousins either. As per usual, my aunt and uncle ended up moving house a few months later. I never could find a rational or logical way to explain this event, and I am absolutely not making this up. This really happened to me. My only regret is that no one else experienced it with me, and I have absolutely no evidence to support it. But this is 100% true. This really did happen. And I absolutely wish that it hadn't.
When I was a little girl, I would always go to my aunt's house after school when my parents were at work. She was disabled and unable to work herself, so to help my parents save on a babysitter, she would watch me after school during the week. One summer, though, my aunt moved to a new house. I had been to this house several times over the course of some summers and school years. However, there was one incident that made me scared to ever walk back in that house again. One time, when I got home from school, perhaps in the 3rd or 4th grade, my aunt had asked if I'd be okay staying alone at the house on my own for 30 minutes. I was excited about being left alone, so I told her I could handle it. She told me she had to run to the store to get her prescription medication, but she wanted me to rest as I had been at school all day. I told her I'd be fine. When she left, I went upstairs to my room to take a nap. I was completely tired from school and luckily had no homework for that day. I lay there for a few minutes just resting. Now, what happened next wasn't completely noticeable for a while. I was under my covers for a few minutes when I began to notice the room was getting cold. I got up and turned the ceiling fan off, thinking that would solve the problem. But as I waited and the fan began to slow, the room only grew colder. I pulled the blankets up over me tighter and hugged myself. I began to warm up a little bit, but my face could still feel the room as it began to go cold. I closed my eyes and eventually drifted off to sleep. I then woke up. I don't know how long I was asleep for, but when I woke up, I felt a sharp pain on my back. I sat up and began scratching at it. It itched and burned at the same time, and I didn't know what was going on. As I was reaching around towards my back, trying to figure out what was itching and burning so bad, I reached around my back, trying to figure out why it was burning and itching so bad. This wasn't regular burning and itching either, not like a mosquito bite or anything, but this felt like knives had been dug in my back. I immediately got up and went to the bathroom. I turned the shower on and left it on cold. It was burning and itching so bad that I didn't even bother taking off my shirt. I jumped in the shower and let the cool water hit me on the back. It soothed the burn for a little bit, but it still stung. I was in the shower for a little while when I heard the front door open and close. My aunt was back. She called up to me and asked if I was okay, as I didn't normally take baths or showers at her house. I told her I was fine and that I'd be out in a minute. I got out of the shower and wiped off the mirror. I took my shirt off and tried to look in the mirror to see what it was, but I couldn't see anything. I opened the bathroom door and looked down the hallway to see if my aunt was out there, but she was downstairs watching TV. I ran across the hall into her room, and I grabbed one of her hand mirrors and went back into the shower. I held it up in front of me and angled it to see what was causing the burning and itching on my back that wouldn't go away. I held my breath. My eyes were wide open, and I froze. On my back, I saw 3 large marks going from my right shoulder blade all the way down to my left hip. It was an open wound. These weren't regular scratches either. I've been scratched by kids at school before, and I've scratched myself a few times, but these were open sores. It hurt, and it burned. I got really scared. I didn't know what to tell my aunt. I didn't want her to see it either. But I put my shirt back on and went back into my room and lay there till my parents got home. They asked me why my shirt was wet, and I told them that I had gotten it wet when I stepped in the shower. Something about forgetting to take off my shirt before getting in. They thought I sounded crazy, but they didn't question me about it. After we ate dinner, I went back into my room, took my shirt off, and looked at my back. I thought maybe I was just dreaming from earlier. Maybe this didn't really happen. But it was there. The same 3 marks going down my back. Now, I don't know where these marks came from. They didn't leave much of a scar. You can still see them if you look hard enough, but to this day, my parents haven't even noticed it. However, I'm 19 now, and I'm in college. My aunt and I still hang out, and she's a really good friend of mine. She's asked me to stay the night at her house several times, but I always decline. No one knows why I do this, but me. Like I said, I don't know where these marks came from, but I did not have them when I walked into that house that day. I only had them when I walked out. And I refuse to be left alone in that house again.